My latest video, blocking a halo with buckram, fabric covered buckram. Now I've got my halo block, which as you probably know from my other videos is from Highland Hat Blocks, my lovely block, and I'm using buckram for this. Now my buckram's on a roll and it's really hard to manage. It pings about all over the place. So I'm cutting a bias strip of buckram that will be long enough to go all the way along the halo and wide enough to go round. So I want a couple of inches either side to give me enough leeway to pin. As you can see, I'm struggling with this because it's been on the roll, it's all curly. It's better if it's folded flat, but I haven't got anywhere to put it folded flat. So there we are. Always hang on to your scraps of buckram because they come in handy for other projects and other things. Don't get rid of them. So I'm just checking here. Have I got enough to go round? Yep. And I'm going to cut off those sort of pointy bits at the end because they're just going to get in the way. Once I've got my piece of buckram to the size I want, I'm going to then dampen it to activate the starch. So I'm spraying just plain water all over it to activate the starch and make it stretchy. And once it's pliable, a few minutes time, you should be able to stretch it really well. There we are. Now, pinning to this block takes forever because buckram is not so flexible and easy to maneuver around a small shape like this. Not the same way that cinema is. Now I've speeded the video up, but if I hadn't speeded it up, you'd have had to watch me for 20 minutes. So it's still a long section, this video, but you can see you have to stretch and stretch either side, really pull it to the ends of the halo. And you have to keep readjusting because you don't want pleats and lumps all over the place. So you've got to keep pinning, keep stretching, take the pins out, move them about, turn it over, do the other side, exactly the same, stretch, stretch, stretch. So you do need to make sure your buckram is not soaking wet, but it's wet enough to stretch enough. So yeah, this took a long while to do. And in fact, this is quite an intense process all round. Oh, look, I bled on it. I stabbed myself and bled. I had to wash that off. Because I'm doing a lot of layers. So this type of hat will take, or this type of halo will take a long time to do. Buckram is not the quickest. So when I get to the ends, I just stick a clip on to hold it in place. So there it is, it's all pinned. Oh, no, it's not. Look, I've managed to get a crease, so I'll have to undo it there. And then once it is pinned and you're happy with it, and I think I'm sort of happy with it now, it's going to go to dry. But yeah, long process doing this. So you've only watched it for about 3 minutes, but it took 20. When it's dry, we're going to cut the excess buckram from the middle. Don't cut it too close to the centre because you need your buckram to meet in the middle. So just cut off most of the excess, just so that you can get the buckram out of the block and you can see what you're doing. Now what I'm doing is I'm going to trim those centres till they meet. I'm going to spray them with water and then I'm going to iron them flat because obviously I don't want lots of creases and pleats in the centre of the halo against the head. So I've wet it and I'm pressing with my iron. You can use an iron on these blocks, but just keep it moving. So you can see I've ironed it all the way down to make it flat. Once it's dry, and don't take it off till it is dry, you can see if it will come off the block okay. Now what I need is a piece of cinema for the middle, which is going to come into play a bit later on in the video. So I want a piece that will go from one side to the other in the middle. and I'm clipping it on one end, I'm pinning it in the middle, and then I'm going to clip it to the other end, just checking it reaches all the way round. Don't know what the weather's like with you, but it's awful here. It's pouring with rain, freezing cold. Middle of April. Ugh. Then what I'm going to do is get a pencil and mark all the way around. Now, it will still be slightly too big for what I want, but it gives me the rough shape that I'll need later on. So I'm going to cut that out and put that to one side for now. Next, I'm going to get a piece of domette or brushed cotton, flannelette, something soft, because we need to now cover the buckram so that we don't have it all lumpy and weavy looking through the fabric. Now, the domette's got to be wet. You've got to spray it like you did the buckram, and you've got to stretch it round the block again over the buckram. Now, this again takes a while to do, and I thought, you don't want to watch me doing that again. That'd be forever. So there we are. The domette. Well, actually, this is brushed cotton, flannelette sheeting I tend to buy. Now, at this point, I realised I wanted 2 layers of buckram, so I did another layer exactly the same. And again, I haven't bothered showing you this because you've seen it once. But I decided I wanted it stiffer than it was. Once your domette has been put over your 2 layers of buckram, you're going to whip stitch it down the middle to keep it all together. So once it's on, whip stitch it down the middle, and there it is with the domette on. Now for the next layer, which is going to be stretch satin. So this is bridal ivory satin, and this is stretch lining because I'm still putting another fabric on the top. So I'm not using stretch Duchess or anything like that. I'm just using stretch lining. Now to make this easier, because this still isn't going to wrap as well, I've done a running stitch around each side to pull it in a bit so that I can meet the middles up and stitch it in place. It's a lot easier if you do a running stitch around each side. It stops the fabric just going hither and thither. So now my satin is stitched on as well as my domette. So I've got 4 layers here now. I've got 2 of buckram, 1 of domette, 1 of satin. And my next layer will be the top layer, which is going to be bridal ivory net with sequins and beads. I haven't got a huge piece, but it is quite stretchy, so I think it will stitch on okay. But it depends what you're stitching onto your top layer as to how you do it. But what I did was cut and stitch this all to it in exactly the same way as I did everything else, and I whip stitch it down the middle. Now, you might need a curved needle for this, so don't worry about the ends too much. And I made a big error in this video, which I always leave them in because you know me. Right, so stitch down the middle, and now we're going to attach a headband. So I've got a thin metal headband, again covered in bridal ivory ribbon. Find out where the middle of your headband is, mark it with a pin, and find out where the middle of your halo is so that you can mark that with a pin as well. And mine was 7 inches. Now we've got to stitch the halo to the headband, or the headband to the halo. Now you really need a curved needle for this, because what you want to be able to do is stitch through the buckram, not just through the fabric layers. You want this to be very secure, and you don't want the headband to flop about. So really you need to have a curved needle, strong thread. You only need a single thread, you don't need double, but you need to stitch through the buckram, and you must pull your stitches very tight as you go along. So every couple of stitches, give it a good tug, and it will show you how good your thread is as well, as long as it doesn't snap. So I like to start in the middle, stitch all the way down one side, then go back to the middle and stitch all the way down the other side. Right, our headband is sewn on. Now, where I made a bit of a boo-boo was I cut the fabric too short at the ends, because it should have been able to have wrapped over the ends of the headband, but I'll show you what I did later to compensate for that. So I shouldn't have chopped it off. I got a bit overexcited. Now we go back to our bit of buckram from the middle. Now, I'm putting it up and I see it's too wide. So I'm going to cut a bit off both sides to make it slightly narrower, because I don't want it to poke out. I want it to be hidden on the head. So I'm trimming down both sides. Doesn't need a lot trimming off, but it was too wide. Right, I'm using some of the bridal satin again, some of the satin. I've cut a strip to fit. Now the good thing is, because of the starch in the buckram, you just need to put the iron over the fabric and the buckram, and it will activate the starch, and the fabric will then stick to the buckram, so you don't have to use any glue and you don't have to use any stitching. Now, so I've got the underside done, and on the top side, because I wanted it to be really neat and tidy and stick well, I've dampened a cloth and I'm just running it down the top side. You'll laugh, I did this video once already and I completely mucked it up and whole bits of it disappeared. So, one day I'll get the hang of it all. So there's our strip for the middle to cover up all our stitching. Now what you need to do is stitch that with neat small stitches all the way down both sides, as you can see here. In fact, you may make your stitches even neater than mine. Now, because I mucked up and I didn't leave enough fabric, I've had to use some narrow gimp braid just to cover those ends, because I cut the fabric off too short, but it should have been enough to fold under and stitch in place. I added some extra beads and a few sequins from the fabric, and overall I'm really, really pleased with it. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and as always, keep watching, keep subscribing, and I look forward to seeing you again. Cheers now. Bye.